The Greek Civil War, 1946 to 1949, was the first major conflict of the Cold War era, fought between government forces backed by the United States and Britain, and communist insurgents supported by the Soviet Union's Balkan allies. Emerging in the wake of Nazi occupation and fueled by deep political, social, and ideological divisions, the war tore Greece apart and left a legacy of trauma, repression, and geopolitical realignment. Background: occupation, resistance, and rising tensions. During World War II, Greece suffered a brutal occupation by Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Bulgaria. In response, numerous resistance movements emerged. The most powerful among them was the National Liberation Front (AM), and its military arm, the Greek People's Liberation Army (ELS), both led by communists. Other smaller groups, such as the National Republican Greek League (EDES), were also active but were often in conflict with ELAS. As the war progressed, tensions between the left-wing and right-wing resistance forces escalated, leading to violent clashes even before the Axis withdrawal in 1944. When Germany retreated and the Greek government in exile returned, supported by the British, the fragile post-occupation peace collapsed. The December crisis of 1944, Decembriana. The first signs of civil war erupted in Athens in December 1944, shortly after the German withdrawal. Clashes broke out between EMELAS fighters and British troops alongside the royalist Greek government forces, who opposed the left's growing influence. The violence ended with the Treaty of Varkiza in February 1945, under which ELAS agreed to disarm in exchange for political participation and promised reforms. However, the agreement soon unraveled. Thousands of former resistance fighters and leftists were persecuted, arrested, or killed in what became known as the White Terror. Trust between the communists and the state collapsed. Outbreak of the Civil War, 1946. By 1946, political tensions had reached a boiling point. In March 1946, armed communist partisans, many of whom had been ELAS veterans, attacked police stations and military outposts in northern Greece. This marked the beginning of open warfare between the Communist Democratic Army of Greece, DSE, and the Royal Hellenic Army, backed by the government. The Communists, now operating primarily in the mountainous north, aimed to establish a people's democracy in line with Marxist-Leninist ideology. They received support and safe havens from Yugoslavia, Albania, and Bulgaria, though the Soviet Union provided limited direct aid, wary of antagonizing the West. Foreign involvement and the Truman Doctrine. The Greek Civil War quickly became entangled in the emerging Cold War. Britain, exhausted and nearly bankrupt, handed over support responsibilities to the United States. In 1947, U.S. President Harry S. Truman announced the Truman Doctrine, promising military and economic aid to countries resisting communism. Greece became a frontline in the global ideological struggle, receiving over $400 million in U.S. aid, as well as military advisors and weapons. This influx dramatically improved the capabilities of the Greek government army. Brutality and civilian suffering. The war was marked by extreme violence on both sides. The DSE conducted forced recruitment, assassinations, and intimidation in rural areas. Government forces, with U.S. backing, carried out mass arrests, torture, and executions of suspected leftists. Entire villages were destroyed and over 700,000 people were displaced. Tens of thousands of children were evacuated from war zones, some by the communists to Eastern Bloc countries, and others by the government to state-run camps. The war created deep divisions in Greek society that lasted for decades. The turning point in communist defeat. By 1948 to 1949, the tide turned decisively against the communists. Key factors included superior firepower and logistics provided by U.S. aid, internal divisions within the communist leadership, the break between Stalin and Yugoslav leader Tito, which cut off crucial support from Yugoslavia to the Greek communists, the government's success in isolating and surrounding DSE strongholds in the north. In August 1949, a massive offensive in the Gramosvitsi Mountains destroyed the DSE's final bases. The war officially ended in October 1949, when the remnants of the communist forces fled into Albania. Aftermath and legacy. The Greek Civil War had devastating consequences. Over 150,000 people were killed. Entire regions were depopulated, particularly in the north. Greece was left economically shattered and deeply polarized. The country became firmly integrated into the Western Bloc, joining NATO in 1952. A harsh anti-communist regime dominated Greek politics for decades, and leftist parties were banned until the 1970s. Reconciliation would not come until long after the war, with official recognition of DSE veterans and national healing beginning only in the 1980s and 1990s. The Greek Civil War was more than a national tragedy, it was a proxy war that foreshadowed the global East-West confrontation. It pitted brother against brother, village against village, and ideology against ideology. Though the communists were defeated militarily, the social and psychological scars of the war haunted Greece for generations. It was not just a conflict of arms, but a struggle for the soul of a nation caught between two competing visions of its future. One Western, democratic and capitalist, the other revolutionary, socialist and Soviet-aligned. In the ruins of the Civil War, modern Greece was born, but at a heartbreaking cost.